Hey. I'm Kimberly Smith Austin. I want to welcome you back to another episode of the Made to Inspire podcast. I am here today with my awesome and amazing co host, Misty Kerrigan. Hey, Misty.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, where everyone is at as they're listening to our Made to Inspire podcast. Super excited for today. Last week, we kind of set the foundation for culture. And then this week, we get to set the execution for said culture. So hopefully you did the homework last week. You sat down, you got some of those words out, you got some of those values you're connected to, and now you're ready to take those to the next level.
That's right. And if you don't know, we're in the midst of the CEO series, that Chief Executive Officer. Regardless if you're a solopreneur, maybe you have a small company, maybe you're a behemoth, you're a huge organization, and you are here just trying to figure out some things. Maybe you haven't mastered it yet, and you're ready to take your business to the next level. That's what we're here for today. And that's why we brought this series on to help you be the CEO of your life, of your business, of your health, and wherever you are in today's time. So, Misty,
Mm.
let's kick off today's show with telling them what we're talking about.
So we really got into the nuts and bolts of taking the time to understand what culture is. And to kind of recap from last week, one of the great things culture was the day-to-day experience at a company shaped by the attitudes, behaviors, standards that make up that environment within the company. And then it starts from the top, CEO, the C-suite, whatever that may be, you as a solopreneur, entrepreneur, and it just works its way down. But it has to be set. It has to be transparent. We talked about last week some of those words because we need to stay truthful and we need to communicate what it is that we want our culture to be. Because unfortunately, if you take a few layers out, people really misunderstand things. You ever play that game where 9 people and you whisper something, and by the time it gets to the last person, it's not at all what it started? Well, that could also happen with your culture. It can happen with your values. So it's important that every step of the way that it's not overcomplicated. It's very simplistic in what it is and how you're going to do it. And so we talked about it, we've defined it, and now we get to one of our favorite things to do, strategize, create the strategy for it. We even call ourselves strategy coaches. We have strategy
Mhm,
brains. We have a million ideas a
mhm.
minute, but one of our wheelhouse is the strategy. And Kimberly, can you kick off a little bit about what strategy is?
Yeah, sure. As I say that, let me preface a couple things because I think about this being an execution series or talk, really primarily. But what we've talked about previous is that you can't execute anything unless you have a strategy, right? And
Mm,
I think it comes back to when it comes to the execution, leaders have to hold themselves and others accountable for making the plans and decisions to sticking to them. And when we think about business execution, it's about having employees support your strategy, making sure they're doing what the company needs, aligning with the culture so that everything comes to life. But here's the truth again, you cannot have good execution without having good strategy, folks. And most people would agree that to achieve, or you can achieve, excuse me, good results without having good execution. So they go hand in hand, right? Similarly, you would agree that having a good strategy is no surefire formula for success. Strategy without execution, execution without strategy, they are meaningless. So you need both. And that's a common conversation that happens. So when you think about strategy, strategic skills as a leader, they're going to allow you to create policies, to establish your direction, and determine how to effectively allocate your resources to reach that big goal. Now, execution on the other side is the tactical, the practical skills that you need to put it into action. So, really being able to distinguish those two and knowing what you're doing, when you're doing it, and why you're doing it is going to matter. And that's why we wanted to bring this to you today, because the strategy is everything, but so is the execution, right? You need them both. And let me just give you a little insight. Strategic execution, I'm going to put those two words together. Strategic execution is the implementation of a strategic plan in an effort to achieve your organizational goals. That's it. And it's structures, systems, operational goals that you set up for you and your team to execute. Does that make sense, Misty?
Can you simplify it?
Basically, getting the plan and going to work. That's
Done.
the simple done.
Yes. And most importantly, within that plan is already attached the most important things about your culture, about your values, because that way we see a lot of disconnect when people are executing this strategy out when they're just trying to hit their goals or hit the numbers. But if you back it up and you're taking the time, your strategic plan already take into consideration your culture, your employees, your team members, their values, your values, and it's already aligned. So as you're executing it, you're not out of alignment with anything that you work so hard to get. Because unfortunately, it's in that execution that sometimes people misrepresent the culture and their values. But if you already have that plan and you're executing it, you can't help but stay aligned with it. And that's why this is so important, especially to ensure that this is flowing through every aspect of the organization. And I love it. It's work your plan and plan your work. And in that plan is already built in those things that are going to help you stay consistent in where it is that you wanted to go and how it is you originally wanted to get there.
That's it. You said it, Misty, and I love it because in essence, and you said it all, execution represents that disciplined process, or in other words, the logical steps of related activity that enables you, the leader, the organization, to take a strategy and make it work. That's it, right? And we just pulled it all together because I think so often people want to run before they have wheels, or they want to run before they have shoes. They want to run before they can walk. But the walking comes in the strategy side. And once you have the walking down, then let's go run and go to work.
I love that. So what are the steps?
Well, we've got several. And why don't you kick us off with one of the first ones? Well, let me say this. I want to go back to what the execution culture links. And there's processes. I can't talk. I have to take these classes off. Three processes of any business, right? The people, the process, the strategy when it comes to the execution. And then there's the operating plan. And those are the step-by-step things that we need in place to get us to where we need to be. So how do we actually build an execution? And I'm going to use the word culture. How do we go back to executing the things that we said we wanted to do and who we wanted to become as an organization? And I think it starts with embedding accountability as our core. Accountability. And we talk about this often. We have an accountability program, accountability challenge. And when you think about accountability, it's everything, because most often we as individuals can't hold ourselves fully accountable. And we need a system in place for checks and balances to make sure that we do what we said we're going to do each and every time. And when you build accountability as your core discipline, it's going to help you achieve success, because accountability from every employee, from the CEO to the front line, makes commitments, and keeps commitments.
Absolutely.
Right? So I know we talk about that all the time in terms of accountability. And I think it's probably one of our favorite things, Missy. So when you look at that accountability from an execution standpoint, how does that work for you?
I love the accountability from the top down, the bottom up really is that every layer of and even if it's just you as a solopreneur, there's still something that you're accountable to. And that's why we encourage masterminds or accountability groups, or if you're going to some of those business things where you're able to network and do some of those, where are we at, where do we need to be sort of thing. Everyone really needs that in the company of who they're accountable to. Yes, there's self-accountability, but there's also something to be said about who are you setting your expectations and answering to. For a lot of times, especially for CEO, even CEO has a board, and the board helps set expectations and set accountability. But in
That's
order for
right.
that to happen, it really has to be a culture of accountability, not whose fault is it, but who's
Mm-mm.
responsible for it.
Responsibility. That's right.
Responsibility is accountability, not let's catch someone who didn't do it, but let's have that person be proud to stand up and want to do it or understand the importance of it and take responsibility of it. Even
That's
as
right.
something as simple as if we here at Oak Grove have a culture of cleanliness because we want it to be really nice for the kids. So today I was
Right.
walking into the gym and I watched two staff out of just come around and pick up some trash that was sitting there. Wouldn't necessarily be their quote unquote job, but here at Oak Grove, it's everyone's job to ensure that the
Sure.
campus is clean and the environment's nice for the kids. So I saw it and I was on my way. I was like, oh, I guess I'll grab it. Two people in front of me already grabbed it. So to me,
Wow.
that is a really great illustration of setting up that importance of what's our culture, keeping the campus clean for the kids. What is how
Hmm.
who's responsible for it? All of us. No one said who
Right.
left this. I didn't do it. It was just it's there. I'm gonna pick it up and throw it away.
And which is beautiful because not only are you demonstrating that you have the cultural norms, cultural values in place, but that is trickled down to the employees. They don't have to, but because it is who they are as an organization. And now at this point, a lot of times it brings into alignment and they're congruent with the mission and they either carry that value themselves and or the company has done an excellent job to drill it down into their lifestyle. So that's the second point is, engaging employees in the plan. And I think today, when we look at today's marketplace, people aren't just going to work for companies that say they're a good fit. They're looking for companies that not only they're a good fit for, but that the company is a good fit for them. So that's a part of the strategy. That's a part of the execution. So engaging those employees in the process and the plan is critical, which takes
Absolutely.
us right on to number three.
And I think I want to add to number two, you nailed it. And you talked about it in the pre-session that these guys didn't hear is that when you're doing some coaching, career coaching, you even tell the people out looking for jobs, interview the company because you want to make sure that your values are aligned with theirs and their values are aligned with yours. And when that happens, you're already in some sort of cynic, what's that word? Synicity? Say
Right?
do what I'm saying? Like flow. I'll say flow. That's an easier word.
Right.
But you're
Yeah.
already in
Yeah.
some sort of flow because you're not just looking for a job. You're looking for a place to be able to add to and have expressions through who you are and what you are doing. So number one is accountability. Number two is engaging the employees in the plan of how we're going to execute all this. And number three is having empowered, transparent communication with measures so that we could actually see, are we where we say we want to be?
That's right.
Are we just
Because
saying we
with
want to be here, or do we know, can we measure that we're really here and we're on our way to where it is we want to go?
right, right. Because here's the truth: without communication, there is no execution. You
Mm,
forget about it. And I'm gonna say this: you forget about it. However that accent is, you might as well forget about it. And but I think by communicating and having a system of accountability with checks and balances, you're able to go back and see we did what we said we're gonna do. And if you didn't, guess what? Here's an opportunity for you to go back, look at those numbers, look at the rubrics, and make the necessary changes that you need to get to where you want to go. Those are critical when it comes to execution. And I think sometimes we get so fast in the process. These large organizations who grew super fast, and there's many of them out here, they grew super fast because they didn't have the measurement. They didn't have, ample and justified communication that eventually, after they got so big, they fell back. They
mm,
fell back. But I will tell you that some of the smart ones went back and then put systems in place. And so if you are on this journey to build your organization and grow fast and strong, make sure you put these things in place now instead of on the back end because we don't want you to lose the momentum. Remember, it's hard to stop a moving train. So let's keep it going forward while you're in the process of building and creating the culture and the execution strategy to help you lead to success.
that is so good. If you're doing it
That's
in
it.
the front end, you don't have to do it in the back end.
That's right. That's right. And I think in the end, that's how you win. In the end, you will win. So remember that as we said so often, those three things: embed accountability, engage your employees in the process, and empowerment through communication and measurements. If you have those things in place, you are sure to win. You are sure to get your company going to the next place. and really building a culture, a staff, a business that will last a lifetime.
Mm.
So as we say every single week here, there's something out here waiting for you.
Now go get it.